Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mr. Miller with your Algebra 9 2.6 notes, solving absolute value inequalities. So the whole focus on this one is here to solve absolute value inequalities. We'll also be solving a real life problem with absolute value inequalities as well there at the end. So, warm up problems again. A couple of these I hope you can do on your own. The third one here we will go through, a little trickier, but we've seen 1 and 2. So I do want to go through those just real quick with you. So just get us in the mind frame here of what we're going to be doing here with our absolute values with inequalities. This is just our absolute value with equalities, not inequalities. So when you have an absolute value sign again on the left, remember we want to set this up as two problems. So x minus 6 is going to equal 4, or our x minus 6 is going to equal a minus 4. Get us into the mindset here of moving forward. So when we do have our inequalities, so we are going to have this situation with some ors. So from here, solve each problem. So getting rid of the 6, we add 6 to both sides, and x comes out to equal 10. And again, we add 6 to the left, add 6 to the right, and we get x comes out to equal 2. Super important that you check your work, ladies and gentlemen, on this. So again, sometimes we can get no answers, some answers, one answer, so on and so forth. We want to make sure that both of these answers are actually correct and working, and that we did our algebra correct on them. So again, you plug it in. So I have my 10 minus my 6. Absolute value has to equal 4. And that comes out to 4 equals 4. So yes, that one is 100% correct. Plug in my other one here. So 2 was my answer. 2 minus 6 equals 4 inside the absolute value. So that is going to come out to a minus 4 inside the absolute value. But again, that's going to be 4 equals 4. So yes, 2 is my answer. So my two answers here are 10 and 2. So x equals 10 and 2. I'm going to let you do the second one by yourselves there, and we will check that later, most likely the next day. Number 3, though, do want to go through here today. And we are breaking this up into 2 days, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to go kind of slow on this. So story problem. A frame will hold photographs that are 5 inches by 8 inches with an absolute deviation of 0.25 inches from length for length and width. So what this means when it says absolute deviation, ladies and gentlemen, that is a plus or minus 2.25 inches on what is stated, the 5 inches and the 8 inches here. So we're actually going to have two equations, and this is how you set up your absolute deviation questions, because we want to know what are the minimum and maximum dimensions for our photos. So again, some of you might be able to reason through this, no problem, but I want to give you kind of a heads up here to the last problem that we'll be doing, which actually will be in the second set of notes for this, how you set it up. So here's how we set it up. You take your 5 inches or your 8 inches, one of them, and we're going to subtract it from x inside our absolute value, and that is going to equal our deviation, which our deviation is 0.25. And we'll do that with the 8 as well. So we're going to have a total of 4 equations once we get done with this. So x minus 8 and 0.25. So again, why do we have 4 equations? Because I just only wrote down 2. Remember, we have to do the OR statement. So we have an x minus 5 equals 0.25, or we have an x minus 5 equals a negative 0.25. And same over here. X minus 8 equals 0.25, or x minus 8 equals a minus 0.25. So here we're adding 5 to both sides, all across. So my first x answer comes out to 5.25. My second x answer comes out to 4.75. Now we're adding 8s. So my first x answer comes out to 8.25, and then my second x answer comes out to 7.75. So again, we get 4 different answers, and we're asked what is the minimum and maximum dimensions for photos with this deviation. So the minimums, we match up the 2 smallest numbers from the x's here from our first set and our second set. So minimum dimensions will be 4.75 by, and that's inches, and the smallest one is for 7.75 inches. For the maximum is going to be 5.25 inches by the maximum 8.25 inches there. And again, always good to check your work, just trying to save a little time. All these answers are 100% correct. So here we go. We have some rules here. So we know when we play around with absolute values, we are going to get 2 problems to do. We get our OR statements. So how does it change when we have an absolute value with an inequality? Here's how it changes. So if the inequality, for example, our absolute value of a times x plus b is less than c, and your c is going to be greater than 0, that is going to be equivalent to the inequalities, and we write it this way. So we're breaking up. This is going to be a between question. So this is what I need to figure out. When is it going to be a between situation? Or when is it going to be a or situation? And the big thing you want to pay attention to here, ladies and gentlemen, is which way our signs are going. That's the biggest difference between these two right now to determine if you're going to get a compound inequality when you break up this absolute value. That is a range, or you're going to get 2 inequalities in an OR statement. And again, these signs here, and I guess I kind of should put like a little, squiggle underneath them. They can be the less than or equal to, or just the less than. They're interchangeable, as we've mentioned here. So when you're looking at these, it's all about which direction. Where is the absolute value sign? Make sure that's on the left. And then which direction is your inequality sign going for how you know how to treat it. So, for example, this first one is just going straight through the rules. Same with the second one here. They're going straight through the rules. So with our first one, my inequality sign is less than or equal to. So it is going to follow my first set of rules here. We're going to have drop the inequality, or excuse me, drop the absolute value, excuse me, misspoke. Drop the absolute value, and then we will have the minus and the plus on either side. So we drop the inequality, we put that in the middle, less than equal to, greater than or equal to, and then you have your number line going correctly, so the larger number on the right, and the opposite on the left. So another way to kind of look at this is also like this, ladies and gentlemen, where you would have, maybe set it up as x is less than or equal to 8, but then x has to be greater than or equal to a minus 8. So then we kind of have to switch things around here. X has to be greater than or equal to a minus 8. It's another way that you could write it, but again, you're flip-flopping. So it is beneficial to remember this order here. So we don't have anything to solve, so we are all set to graph it out. So 0, 8, minus 8. They are filled in circles above the minus 8 and filled in circle above the 8. And again, this is a range, so it's all the numbers possible between minus 8 and 8 and including them. So it's going to look like this when we get done graphing it out. So all those numbers in there satisfy it. So again, if you want to put in anything, check it. So is 0 between those numbers? Yes. Is 3 between those numbers? Yes. So on and so forth. Is minus 3 between those numbers? Yes. So it's satisfying. Is less than or equal to that. Second one. Again, our absolute values are on the left. Number greater than 0, our C value is greater than 0, and we have the sign going the opposite direction. This is going to be an OR situation now. All right, so the first one here, you'll write it as R is going to be greater than 2/3, or, and again, we don't have any math here to do on this one, R is going to be less than 2/3. So R is greater than the positive, and then R is less than the negative. So when you graph this out, again, just adding the positive and negative 2/3, not doing it too difficult. I have a greater than or less than sign, so I know it's open circles. And again, with the variable on the left, arrows tell me which way to point. So arrow for that one tells me to go that direction, and the arrow for this one tells me to go this direction. Which this becomes very important that you take your time, ladies and gentlemen, and check your answers. Make sure they make sense in here, all right? This one's a little easier visually because it's a range between those, so we can see, oh yes, if I did put in a minus 7, that's going to be less than or 8. Well, 7 is less than or equal to 8. Here, plug in a number. So this says use a whole number, minus 1. So if I plug in that minus 1 in there, is that greater than 2/3? Well, remember, it's the absolute value of minus 1, so 1 is greater than 2/3. So that is shaded correctly. And we can try it here with a 1. So you can just kind of see it again here. If we made that a positive 1, yeah, 1 is going to be greater than 2/3, so that's going to work. 0. This should not work. So if I plug in 0 in there, that would give me 0 is greater than 2/3. That is not a correct statement. So again, that's why 0 is not a part of my answers down here. So please really watch that. Really plug your answers back in. It will help you make sure that you have your correct statements. So I forgot to circle this. That's my final answer. And then, oops, kind of went through my work there. That's my final answer. And then obviously with the graph as well. So, sorry, just trying to move it so it's in the camera. Again, we have an OR situation. So you write down the first one just like you see it. X plus 3, we drop the absolute value, is greater than 8. Or x plus 3 is less than minus 8. So again, on this one, it does switch. All right, so you switch the signs with the minus there. And then we just attack it like we have been solving. So minus 3, minus 3. I'll even do it over here as well. Minus 3, minus 3. So x is going to be greater than 5, or x is going to be less than, looks like a minus 11. So we graph it out. Minus 11, 0, and 5. Again, my variables are on the left, so it's nice. So if I'm doing my minus 11 first, it's an open, and arrowhead is pointing the right direction. Open on the 5, and again, the arrowhead's pointing the right direction. So again, there's two ways that you can check this, ladies and gentlemen. I like to not confuse myself and check correct answers so I get correct statements. But again, I do throw in the incorrect one also. So if you want to do that mentally, plug in 0. Is 3 larger than 8? No. But is 0 one of my answers? No, it is not. So again, when I check this one, I'm going to be throwing in, like for example, a minus 12, which is one of my answers. It just happens to be the next number. Plus 3, is that greater than 8? So that gives me minus 9, but cleaning it up, bringing it out of the absolute value, 9 is greater than 8. So, yep. Oops, circled the wrong one. That one works. And then I just tested 6. I let x equal 6. So 6 plus 3, that has to be greater than 8. And 9 is greater than 8. So yes, that worked as well. So again, I let x equal minus 12 up there for that one. We are going to stop there for that one and leave the rest for next time.